Hello, my name is Bolatito Olowofela, and this is my final project for the modeling analysis class. My project is on the analysis and Simulink optimization of the analysis of chaotic behavior in a novel extended love model considering positive and negative external factors and environments. To begin, to understand what this model, the extended model really is, we have to see the history behind the extended model. The original model that the extended model is derived from is the basic model of love of Romeo and Juliet. As you can see here, this model states Romeo and Juliet's love for one another. In this basic model, R is for Romeo, J is for Juliet, A and D represent each person's love derived by their own feeling, while B and C represents each person's love derived from each other's feeling. As we can see on this slide, we have the basic formula modeled. This basic formula shows us that if Romeo and Juliet's love, if their love is represented by B and C, then their love will exponentially grow. They will continue to grow in love in one another as shown here by the lines, by the blue line and the yellow line. If Romeo and Juliet's love is dependent on their own love, which is A and D of the original equation, then they will eventually grow indifferent of each other and move away from each other. This block diagram, as well as the Simulink graph of Romeo and Juliet, was based on their love model derived by one another. This model, using B and C, is what the extended model is based on their love growing exponentially for one another rather than them growing indifferent of one another. Now that we see where the extended model comes from and where it was derived from, what makes this extended model necessary? So the reason why an extended model is necessary is because we're able to add external factors that can play a role in Romeo and Juliet's love. Romeo and Juliet in this case can be any two people in love, whether a boyfriend and a girlfriend or a man and a wife. In real life situations, they simply will not be isolated by themselves, but rather have different external factors that include parents, that include mental health, and that include, if maybe, other partners. So this external factor, as modeled by these two equations, are both y of t and f of t. Now, these equations can display a chaotic behavior that is also allowing an external factor to make and affect the love between Romeo and Juliet. Now that we know an external component is necessary for us to be able to model an external extended model of Romeo and Juliet's love, let's look into what that external component is. So the external component can be seen in this equation. Y of t, which is also equal to f of t, is equal to a sine omega pi t plus b. Now, a sine wave was used to represent the external factor because it's able to represent both the positive and the negative external factor that is in the external model. So because the external model that will affect Romeo and Juliet's love is not always going to be positive or always going to be negative, a sine graph or a sine wave is the best way to model it because a sine wave or a sine graph is able to go to extreme highs as well as extreme lows. The A and B represent the magnitude of the advance. So this advance would be the external component, whether advance from a human person, whether advance in the decline of their mental health, or whether advance in a new job. That's what A and B will represent. And the omega represents how often the external factor affect Romeo and Juliet's love. So is this external factor an everyday daily thing? Is this external factor only once or twice a week? Is this external factor only once in a blue moon? And depending on how often that external factor is, and then depending on how heavy that advice is, will also play a role in how the sign graph will go either to extreme highs or extreme lows. Now, when modeling this extended love model, considering positive and negative external factors, this is the block diagram that I decided to use. I was able to graph both Romeo and Juliet's love that contain the external factor. Now, in doing this, I had to create parameters that will allow for me to be able to graph their love both in a positive and a negative environment. As you can see below, I was able to graph their love when it was a negative environment and also a positive environment, and when it was a negative environment and a positive environment. And from that block diagram, I was able to obtain this graph. This graph shows that when an external, or positive specifically, external factor is brought into Romeo and Juliet's love, their love goes up and down. So it's not a exponential increase like the basic love model of Romeo and Juliet, but rather an up and down. But one thing that you do see here that is consistent with the basic model of Romeo and Juliet is that Romeo and Juliet's love follows one another. So in this case, Juliet, the yellow, is going up and down, and Romeo is following her up and down, which means that their love they never become indifferent of each other, never become bored of each other, never become um, static with one another, but rather their love goes from an extreme high to a medium to an extreme low to a medium to another extreme high, and continues on. And this is when a positive external factor is introduced. Now, when a negative external factor is introduced, it pretty much does the same as the positive external factor. So in the same case, Romeo and Juliet's love goes up and down from extreme high of love to like a medium love, extreme low of love, a medium love, back up to a high, and continues on. Never does it go simply in one exponential direction when an external factor is added onto their love. Rather, they go on an up and down like most relationships go up and down in that manner of extreme highs, extreme mediums, extreme lows, mediums, extreme highs. From this external love model concerning positive and negative environments, we can conclude something we as humans already know, that when external environments are considered, when people are listening to their friends, having trouble at work, having trouble internally with their mental health, not feeling their best, that all can have an effect on their love for somebody. So, like the basic model shows, Romeo and Juliet, any two partners who are solely reliant on their love for each other, will continue to receive love from each other and continue to grow in love exponentially. But once a external factor, whether good or bad, positive or negative, entered that relationship, whether through action, whether through thought, whether through messages, whether through glances, whether through any means, enters that relationship, it now moves the relationship from exponential high to a up and down high, having extreme highs and extreme lows in that relationship. From that, we learned what we all know is to be careful of how you decide to talk to people about the relationship and intervene in others' relationship, because you never know how what you say will affect them and affect their love. Thank you so much for listening to my final project on the analysis and Simulink optimization of the analysis of chaotic behavior in a novel extended love model considering positive and negative external environments. Thank you.